the news that we'll talk about. We've added a couple more blockchain networks. So additional Ethereum layer 2s. You've got Optimism and Arbitrum, support in there. And then one of the features I'm probably most excited about, the ability to buy crypto from Tastytrade in your Tastytrade account right here in the Tasty Crypto wallet app. So we'll get into that in just a second, but I want to take a quick peek at some updated prices here. A little bit of a bounce in the market. Post CPI came in slightly below where I think expectations were. So maybe you get some whipsaw in terms of interest rate expectations for what the Fed does next. Regardless, probably due for a bounce given the selling pressure that we've seen in here. It's been pretty ugly, as you can see, down double digits in most cases outside of Bitcoin, and it's been a ugly couple of months, to say the least. No real change in terms of some of the price momentum signals that we see, though I will call out Bitcoin for now has gone from bullish to neutral on the weekly. Not a good sign. ETH bearish on the weekly, as it has been for some time, and now from bullish to neutral in terms of how we track those moving average crossovers on a monthly basis. So continuing to break down there. Not a good sign, but it is crypto. It can change in an instant. We shall see. That said, let's take a quick look at volatility. Implied vols still where they've been for Bitcoin, hasn't moved too much. 58% in IV terms. ETH 76%. A little bit of a discount in there too, given the realized vol that we've seen. But in terms of expected moves on a 1 week forward basis here at the current spot price of right around 83,000 for Bitcoin and an implied volatility of 58%, you're looking at a $6,700 move roughly. So your range is 76.4, 89.8, ETH, about $200 there. That's come down a bit as the price has really just been cut in half over the last couple of months. Solana, $24 move, range is 101 to 149 there, and you've got Doge and XRP on the screen. Let's see who's in the chat before we get started. Justin, what's up? Crazy House, how you doing? Good to see you guys in here. If anybody else is on the show, well, send us a note in the chat. That said, let's jump into the demo. We have a fantastic way of pulling up the apps here. We talked about the Tastytrade product and the Tastytrade interface update last time that we did a demo. Today, we're going to go through the wallet app. So what we're looking at here is the Tasty Crypto mobile app. This is available right now. This version of it is available in both the iOS and Android app stores. The iOS app update came out on Friday. We just pushed the Android or Google Play Store update here today. And what this app gives you the ability to do is not only just track your balances on chain and really be the custodian or the owner, really the true owner of your crypto, and that you're in control of your private key. It also gives you access to DeFi, what I like to call on-chain opportunities. We'll talk about our DeFi dashboard in just a second. But we've started to add some more content, in a sense, our markets dashboard. So you have this concept of markets, a market awareness. You have the ability to create a watch list. Let's go through that to start with. So this is one of the biggest new features that we've added, and you'll now see that there's a markets tab in the navigation. When you get there, there are a couple of data points at the top. So one of the things that we talk about quite a bit here on the show is Bitcoin market cap dominance. You can see that here, 61%. It's been stuck at these levels for really some time now, and this is about a 3-year high. We've got a fear and greed index that's pulled in from coin market cap. So clearly, sentiment is pretty bearish out there with fear and greed at 15. And then you can see trading volume as well over the last 24 hours across the space, and the total crypto market cap of the assets that are tracked by coin market cap. So you've got 2.69 trillion, up slightly here, as you would expect with the bounce. That said, this is an easy way to keep track of crypto prices across the market, whether it's Bitcoin or any alt or meme coin that you're interested in. You can also add coins to your favorites. So I'll show you how to do that here in just a second. Let's say that you're looking at Solana. In the upper right corner, you've got this little star. Tap that, and that will add that to your watch list. So if that worked correctly, we should now see Solana on the favorites there. Also have a couple of lists that will just sort on a daily basis by percentage change. So if we look at the biggest gainers over the last 24 hours, you can see those here. You can also see those top losers. I don't know if that's a good thing, but the biggest losers here, largest downside moves, you can see those over the last 24 hours as well. But I like the ability to just start to add different tokens as I'm interested in them or I'm starting to trade them. I can add those right there to the favorites. But if we go back to our markets dashboard, the next thing that I want to point out, if we could throw the app back up on the screen here, the next thing that I want to point out is the news stories. So this is something that we've added recently, and I think I maybe previewed this on an earlier show. But let's say that you want to see what's going on with Solana or Ethereum. If you just tap on this for a second, it's going to bring up the different news stories, and you'll be able to scroll through this. And we might be going through a little bit of technical difficulty, so bear with me for just a second. We'll get the app back here on the screen. But what you'll see is that when you tap on those different symbols for the tokens, they're highlighted, as you would notice as well in an app like TikTok or Instagram. You'll be able to then go through the news by tapping through it and kind of reading each one of these as a story, which is pretty cool. So one of the features that I like a lot that we've added here, keeps me coming back to the app, easy to see what's going on, and that news feed you're going to be able to navigate pretty easily. So a couple big updates there as we're trying to just work through some of the technical difficulties. If anybody has any questions for us or has any feedback on the app, if you're a user, anything that you'd like to see, feature requests, anything at all, type it in the chat if you're over here on YouTube, and we can talk through that. Additionally, we've added new support for Optimism and Arbitrum. So this is a wallet that will give you multi-network support. Right now, or initially, it was on Bitcoin when we launched. On Ethereum, we added Polygon shortly thereafter. Then we added Solana, Base, the list goes on. Optimism, Arbitrum support. So if you have tokens or you're trading on any of these networks, you'll be able to see all of that here in the Tasty Crypto app. So I think we might have worked through some of the issues that we're having. I think a little bit of a connection with the device that we use.
Yeah, I think there's still an issue. I have to come back in.
Yeah, no problem. All good. We're keeping you on your toes here. In the meantime, let me jump back over to some of the slides that we have. So I was just talking about the bloodbath in markets that has continued, maybe a little bit of a reprieve here today. But we've added a lot of new tokens to the Tastytrade platform. Going to continue to add more. So you'll see hopefully this week or at the latest early next week, we'll make an announcement, another 6 tokens or so. But recently we've added Cardano, Chainlink, Aave. Avalanche is coming next week, but we've got the price performance up here. It hasn't been doing very well anyways on the screen. And then Shiba Inu, another meme. So these are some of the additional tokens that we've added. Coming next, we've got Aptos, Sui, or Sui, however you want to pronounce it. We do have Avalanche coming. I'm trying to think what the other couple are. Stellar Lumen and Tezos. So a few more tokens that you'll be able to purchase in the Tastytrade brokerage platforms. So if you don't have a crypto account and you're interested in trading crypto at Tastytrade, we talked about this a week ago or so. All you have to do if you have a cash or margin account is enable crypto. And I think we're back. So here we go. All right, back to the Tasty Crypto app. This is what I was talking about. This is the news feature that I like a lot. You can scroll through this back and forth, and then any of these that you want to read, just swipe up, and that'll take you to the actual news article. So we've got this feature in here. It feels a lot like some of the social media apps that I think people are familiar with, but that's one of the new additions that we've added, and then you can just close out of this, take you back to the markets dashboard. And it looks like we do have a question from Eric. So let me just jump into the questions here so I don't miss too many of these. Eric's question, I got a really stupid question. No stupid questions, Eric. You're all good. Is the Tastytrade desktop application connected to exchanges so I can just trade? Yeah, so the way that crypto works through Tastytrade is that there's a third party, Zero Hash, which is the custodian of the assets. They manage the wallets, and they also facilitate the trading functionality. So you can think of it almost as crypto as a service. And in some ways, in terms of the securities trading, now the order routing isn't the same, but you have a custodian of the assets or the securities. In Tastytrade's case, that's Apex Clearing Corporation. You can think of Zero Hash as the clearing firm or the custodian, and additionally, the firm or service that's going to facilitate the trading and the exchange, right there, powering these features and this offering in the Tastytrade platform. So that's how it works. And then one more question here, Justin. Not a crypto user, but you mentioned a bullish or bearish sentiment. Is this based on trend? So what we look at in terms of our performance dashboard is just trying to get a sense of what the trend is over multiple time frames in terms of price momentum by measuring moving average crossovers. We're going to drive different signals from those depending on where the price is in relation to them. Have to get some more detail around the fear and greed index here that we pull in from CoinMarketCap. I think if you go to the CoinMarketCap website, they probably have a definition for this. There's no way to click on it in the app today, but we can provide some more context there. I don't know exactly how that's calculated. So that is one of the bigger updates that we've added to the Tasty Crypto app here, this markets dashboard and then this news feature. I also hit on some of the new blockchain networks that you can trade on. As you look at what we have set up here, we've got Base, Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana, and you can see which network these tokens are on given the little logo for those chains that appears next to the bigger logo for the token itself. So if we look at SPX 6900, hell of a token. Performance hasn't been that good, but love the token. That's on Solana. And you click into any one of these, if you haven't used this before, you get a similar experience to what you might find in a lot of different trading apps where you can get some more information about the token that you're looking at. So if you want to see a price chart over, and these are nasty, by the way, you want to see a price chart over different time frames, look at a 3-month, yearly, look at the lifespan of it. You can do that. You can also get some news here, and you can see activity in that chain. So we've swapped in and out of this. This was part of the bag battles we were doing earlier. But if you scroll up and down here, you can get some more information. So you'll see that price range too and kind of where the current price is in relation to the time period that you're looking at. You can see how this has performed, or any token has performed against Ethereum, against Bitcoin. You can see where the volatility has been over a certain period of time. So if we wanted to look at this over the last year, what is that volatility? Well, you're annualizing at 109% in volatility terms. So that's going to be a realized vol. Get your market cap, et cetera, et cetera. And again, you can see some more details for each one of these tokens. And as long as the data is available, we'll be able to pull it in here and show that for each one. So I like this a lot because it also kind of functions as a watch list. It functions as a way to learn a little bit more about some of the tokens that you're trading. And you can see all of your balances here for this address. All of these exist on chain, but you can see them all here. You can control the token, you can swap it, you can send it to another address directly on chain, all from the wallet app. So that's the next thing that I want to talk about is how to swap tokens in the app. This utilizes decentralized exchange. So this is going to happen directly on the blockchain network that the token is on or that you hold it on. So if we look at USDC, we have a US dollar stablecoin. If I click on this, I can see the token details for it as well. I can send it, or I can generate the address that I can send it to, or I could receive, I should say, it at. If I click on swap, though, I now have the ability to trade any token for another. In this case, it's pretty straightforward. I'm going to buy something with the USDC stablecoin, the dollars that I hold. So I can see the balance that I have. If I click on max, it's going to allow me to trade the whole thing. But if I want to go back and let's just say that we want to buy $20 worth of ETH and we want to do this on the base network, all I have to do is select the token that I want to swap it into. There's going to be a small fee, and at times, depending on the order size, you'll have a little bit of slippage as you would experience on a decentralized exchange. But that's all going to happen in the background. You don't have to go to Uniswap. You don't have to go to another decentralized exchange and connect to it and set up your trade. You can do this directly in the app. So it'll pull the quote in. It's going to aggregate liquidity from different decentralized exchanges, and then you can conduct the swap. So here, I'm going to buy $20 worth of ETH. I'm going to do this directly on chain in the wallet. Full custody right here within my own control. So similar to a confirm and send order review screen, I hit swap now. It's going to take a second to load, but what this is going to do is swap my $20 in USDC stablecoin for roughly $19 worth, or almost $20 worth of ETH, and then that'll update in a second on the activity, and you can see that there we go. We just swapped USDC for ETH. And this is one way that you can trade directly in the wallet, again, directly on chain. So when you go to Tastytrade, you can acquire ETH, Bitcoin, eventually stablecoins such as USDC. There are many other tokens that we're continuing to add to the offering, but there certainly aren't thousands of tokens that are available. Not everything that's on chain. If there's something that you want to trade on chain, maybe it's a meme coin, it's something else that just launched, or it's a DeFi token, something that we might not offer today at Tastytrade, all you have to do is send that crypto, ETH, USDC, eventually, to the wallet address that you control through the Tasty Crypto app, and then you can use the swap functionality to trade it for anything else. You can see the charts in there, you can see the details for those tokens. Then you hit the swap button, queue up your order, and within a few seconds, you're good to go. So that's a bit on the swapping functionality. We've talked about the markets dashboard. Want to take a look now at the DeFi dashboard that's in here. So in addition to just trading tokens, being in control of your wallet address and being your own custodian here across all these different blockchain networks, you can also access on-chain opportunities, participate in DeFi protocols directly in the wallet by going to the DeFi dashboard. And so you can see that there's a couple of protocols that we've been at recently or recently viewed. You can get different categories here. So if you're interested in decentralized exchange, there's a list of different DEXs that exist. If you're interested in yield generating opportunities, so maybe you want to stake your ETH on Lido, you want to borrow or lend on Aave, you want to participate in any of these protocols, you can do that. And that's not just on Ethereum or on Ethereum layer 2s, that's also going to be on Solana. And you can see that here in the app. But let's say that we want to go to Uniswap. We want to set up a liquidity pool, and we'll show you how to do this on a future show. I've covered this a little bit in the past, but let's say that we want to go to Uniswap. Just tap that Uniswap logo. You're going to have to connect the wallet, and so we are working on improving some of this functionality so that it's just one tap, two taps, and boom, you're good to go. But once you click on connect, you'll see that the Tasty Crypto button pops up, and then you do have to click it again. But now I've connected this wallet. I've signed a transaction to establish a connection with the wallet address and the protocol. So now, if I want to swap here, I can, or I can use the liquidity pool functionality. I just have to click on the menu, click on pool, and you can see that I previously had a virtual and wrapped ETH pool set up. Click on this. Can see the details of that pool. If this was something that was in range, we'd have that in range indication, and we'd see what's going on in terms of the fees and the underlying pool size. Obviously, virtual has gone down quite a bit, so this was a lot higher earlier. But what we'll do on a future show is remove liquidity from this pool. We'll swap around a little bit, and then we'll set up a new, let's say, ETH USDC pool, and start to track that, because the fees are pretty attractive, or they can be at times. It's obviously not without risk. You do have that underlying volatility risk, but when you're doing something with, let's say, a stable pair and ETH, it's a little bit less volatility because you don't have two cryptos in there at the same time. But that is the DeFi dashboard. Any of the activity then that you partake in, the trade history, the swap history, doing something on a DeFi protocol such as Uniswap, you're going to be able to see all of that here, as well as just send and receive right here on the activity page. So if we go back to the $20 in USDC that we just swapped, I click on that, I can see some transaction details. And then if I want to go directly to the block explorer, just click on completed there, and that'll take me to Etherscan, base scan, you name it, and you'll be able to see the actual transaction details or more details around that transaction. The next thing that I want to show here, and we'll take a couple questions as I see there's a couple of you typing in the chat, so thank you. The last thing that I want to show is just the ability to buy crypto or transfer crypto from Tastytrade. We've made it super easy to do this. You have to log into your Tastytrade account, assuming you have a Tastytrade account. If not, you can go and open one up at Tastytrade. But let's say that you've done that. You have crypto transfers turned on. You have crypto trading enabled, obviously. If that's the case, you can log in, and I've previously logged in here. You can see the accounts that you might have, and this one I know is connected to or enabled for crypto trading. And when I do that, it's going to give me two options: the ability to withdraw that crypto, and that's just a transfer. Let's say that I have some ETH, I want to move it to this address, and I want to create a liquidity pool on Uniswap. I would withdraw my crypto. I would be prompted, and I can just show you here, prompted to withdraw the ETH. You're going to see how much then is there. So just a little bit over 1 ETH. You can move the whole thing over to this wallet address if you want to do that. Additionally, it's really easy to buy crypto using this interface. Now, this is in your Tastytrade account. When you've logged into the Tastytrade account, it's going to use the Tastytrade API, and you'll be able to purchase crypto with any cash that's available in the account. So if I click on buy crypto, I have the ability to then purchase any of the tokens or cryptocurrencies that are available through Tastytrade. Once I do that, in this case, let's buy $5 worth of ETH. I can buy it in cryptocurrency terms, so a tenth of an ETH, a hundredth of an ETH, whatever it might be, or we make it really simple. You can do a dollar amount, and this is just going to route a straightforward market order, dollar amount market order, review buy, place that order, and you'll see how quickly this will fill the order. And this is, again, going in the Tastytrade account. So there we go. We've got the notification that we successfully purchased a small amount of ETH, $5 worth here at the time that we've purchased it. So again, you can log into your Tastytrade account directly in the Tasty Crypto app. And once you've done that, you've established the connection, you can transfer crypto that you hold, or you can buy crypto with the cash that's available in your account. That said, the crypto that you buy, it does stay in your account unless you withdraw it. So those are some of the big updates that I was excited to show off here in the Tasty Crypto app. New version that, again, just went out on Friday, and the Android version was just released today. If you don't have the most recent update, make sure to update your app. If you're interested in checking out the Tasty Crypto app, again, you can get it in those mobile app stores. So let me just take a quick look at some of the questions that we have. If I don't get to it, I apologize. Definitely join in our Discord or hit us up on Twitter at Tasty Crypto. We have a Discord community as well. Can provide support in there, answer questions, feedback, suggestions. We want it all. But let me see. We'll just go from the bottom here. Jose, thanks for the feedback there. Eric is asking, considering the nature of DeFi swaps, Tasty does not take a fee, right? No, so we do take a fee here. It is the only revenue generating mechanism that we have in the wallet app. So there is a 75 basis point fee on the trade as part of the swap here in the wallet. But we have some additional features coming to that as well that I think you'll like. We might make some adjustments as a result. But right now, similar to MetaMask, similar to Coinbase Wallet and many others out there, we do charge a fee for the swap on a per trade basis. Rick is asking, does it exchange coins across different networks, for example, ETH versus Avalanche? We do not have cross-chain swaps natively in the application. I will do another show where we break down Uniswap a little bit more. You're not going to be able to swap from, let's say, Ethereum to Solana or to Avalanche today through Uniswap, but you can do a cross-chain swap between Ethereum and other layer 2s. So maybe you have ETH and you want to move it to Base and create a liquidity pool there, or swap for other tokens on Base. You can do that very easily using the Uniswap interface. So we will we'll show that here on a future show, but we are working on cross-chain swaps, and I'm thinking from what I've heard it's going to be around Q3, but we'll have the ability to eventually swap from one chain to another that's not just EVM. So looking forward to that, but great question. Great questions all around. Let me see what else we've got here. And also shout out to Lone Sophos. What's up? Actually, now that I look at the clock, we are running out of time. So if you have additional questions for us, a couple places where you can reach us: support@tastycrypto.com. Join the Tasty Crypto Discord community. It's becoming pretty active. We've brought that back. Super excited about that. Or hit us up on Twitter @tastycrypto. And to Lone Sophos' point here, if you missed the show, you're just joining in, we will post this video on the Tasty Crypto YouTube channel. Whole separate channel, separate network. Dan and Shelly have a show on there that's live on Mondays and Fridays called Beans. So check that out as well. But get over to the Tasty Crypto YouTube channel and subscribe to that. So thank you all for showing up here today. Apologies for some of the technical issues that we experienced. We'll iron that out going forward. But we appreciate the support. Appreciate you showing up. And again, if you have any feedback, suggestions for us on the app, feature requests, or any bugs to report, send it to support@tastycrypto.com. But that's going to do it for my show. Victor Jones is up next with The Price of Truth. I'll be back on Monday with Katie McGarrigle. Until then, I'm Ryan. Peace.
If you missed the live show, here's our cherry on top yearly recap.
So, we're doing the show on Friday, and the bat, he's doing the show in the morning, then he's going away afterwards, right?
Yeah.
He's all packing up the car, he's doing his stuff.
RV.
Packing up the
Packed up the RV for a 6 to 8 day trip. We're supposed to be there about
4
48
days.
hours.
I bet him $20. I said, you'll be in a hotel by either the first night or second night.
Oh, and then I vociferously stood up for you.
Of course you did. You should have, because that was the smart
I
move.
appreciate you. You're
Yeah.
good.
Saturday morning, I look at my phone, and it says Venmo, $20.
I almost had to pay him $40 because there was a little stipulation. If I didn't sleep there one night at all, I'd have to double the bet. I almost had to send him $40.
What happened?
See what happened?
Here, what happened was,
We're driving up there. It's absolutely beautiful. It's like sunny as can be.
You were tweeting pictures.
Oh.
Yeah, it was
The
beautiful.
girl
It was
on
beautiful.
Instagram, you're like, I'm
Oh,
here
yeah.
in the woods.
Absolutely beautiful. Absolutely beautiful.
amazing.
It was gorgeous. We were gonna make a slight right-hand turn. We got about 10 miles to go, and up ahead there's like this dark cloud, and it's raining. It started getting muddy, and dogs are getting all muddy. Wife's having a little problem. Bugs are everywhere from the rain. And I realized at that moment that my wife was not a camping gal. Look at
Oh, that's a surprise.
So at 6 o'clock in the morning, I pulled everything out, closed everything up, shoved everything underneath, and I was home. We actually left because we did the show at 10 o'clock in the morning. I said we left at 10:30. I was home at 10 o'clock in the morning the next day. Look at him.
You were just
Jumped in my pool, looked back at my house, and I said, why would I ever leave? Why?
He was going to go fishing, catch
He's hurt on this one.
muskies, some bass.
Very quiet.
I left Friday at 10:30. I was back Saturday at 10.
AM?
Yeah,
You didn't make it 24 hours.
no,
Who broke down?
they all did. They all did. I rented a boat for Saturday, but the boat was broken. It rained for 5 hours. When we got there, it was.
Now the RV on rvtrader.com.
No.
Yeah,
Whoa, wait a minute. How do you get to Florida now?
I don't care anymore.
Oh my God. First of all, I'm sitting in the captain's seat. I've never been invited to come sit in the new captain's seat. But what I'm concerned with is the size of these screens. And then he's still doing this.
No, let's take a look.
They did not hold that rally at all.
Phil, you got a partial.
973.75.
I'm looking at this like I have to move my head to get through the top, the top symbols. I thought he had like a little computer and he was getting down.
He hasn't learned that he could like swivel his head. He has to see the screen. He has to go like this.
To me. And then, you know what? Money goes to money. You did it. Good job out of you.
Yeah.
I just drove with him twice. Now I'm really concerned that I was just in the car with him for 2.5 hours. Okay, I need help understanding. This is the largest monitor that I've ever seen. Like, I have to move back in order to see everything. And somehow when you're on air, you're like looking at this, you need some help.
Nope, I got everything fine. The problem is I just have a lot to do. You see, because
Thanks for that. Oh, yeah, it is Wednesday, March 12th, a little bit after 5 p.m. Central Time, the best time. You know what that means? It's time for Tasty Live's evening show, a little podcast called The Price of Truth. I don't know the rest of it. Chris, it's Wacky Wednesday, so we have with us another big brain, perhaps the biggest we've got with us, Chris Vecchio. Chris, how you doing, my friend?
Doing well, Mr. Jones. I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm all right. Your, and I do mean your daylight savings time is, it's kicking my ass a little bit. I'm good.
Our daylight savings time is kicking your ass a little bit? Not apostrophe R-E. Okay, sorry. Didn't Little Rubio submit something to get rid of daylight savings time? Whatever happened to that? Little Marco has definitely submitted.
I thought he did, though, during the Biden administration. What happened with that?
You know how much of a disaster this would be? We tried this in the 1970s, right? And we did it, and people hated it. And so Congress flipped it back. They go, okay, we'll reverse it.
Why would they hate it? Just they don't. What was the deal? Just getting dark too early?
Do you want to send your kids in certain parts of the country? Do you want to send your kids to school in the dark?
I don't care.
Well, that's you. Most people don't want to send their kids to school in the dark. So
I mean, if you get up early enough, you're sending them to school in the dark anyway. So I think the real answer is everyone get up earlier. Or here's the other answer. Let's get rid of the concept of time and go on pure circadian rhythm.
Yeah, in that case,
that's the real problem.
I'm still like 25 at that, if that's the case.
Chris Vecchio, my friend, we got a lot to talk about. But before we do it, we should probably say what's up with the people. Shout out to everybody watching on tastylive.com, as well as all of you watching on Tastytrade desktop and mobile applications. If you don't already have both, go get them. But if you want to be part of the conversation that you are going to see on your screen somewhere over here, there's only one place to do it, and that's on the evil Google YouTube. So head on over there. Find the Tasty Live YouTube channel. Start bashing your face and your wrist and your fingers into the keyboard. Doesn't matter what you say. Type in random mass characters if you want to, just as long as you spoof the Google algorithm into putting us in front of as many people as possible. Let's reprogram the world one view at a time. Chris Vecchio, what say you about price action? Super open-ended question. A little vol crush, a little relief rally, and I do say little, not much doing to the upside, but I suppose anyone who's looking for an upside and risk will take it. What do you think?
Still garbage. Last week, we talked about the momentum structure where the market had been unable to close back above the 1 week moving average in either the S&P or the NASDAQ going back to February 20th. And that remains the case. In fact, if you look at both ES and NQ and you were to, on the Tastytrade platform, you can go to the indicators tab and add an EMA and click 5 in there. If you were to do so, you would have find that, well, both ES and NQ failed at their 1 week moving average today on the rally. So the momentum profile remains weak. There are signs, there are indications that perhaps we are getting close to a bottom. Oil rebounding, treasury yields moving a little bit higher, those are good signs. We're moving away from stagflation, recession mindset, if you will. But the actual price action has not turned the corner. Some things have individually. You can look at Tesla back above its 1 week. You could look at SMH back above its 1 week, XLK. So there's a smattering of some hope that's starting to green shoot up if you look on a sector by sector basis. But by no means am I comfortable laying out new capital for long deltas and equities, which is why I haven't. And I've been sitting on the sidelines waiting patiently. I still think technically this is a market that can still fall. That could be below 19K for the NASDAQ. It could be to 53.75 for the S&P. So either momentum breaks to the downside or we keep going to those double top targets. I'm happy to see what the market gives me on either end before I make a decision.
I don't think I'm jumping in with both feet. But I think Friday I got short vol and built the position up at the beginning of this week. And then I've been nibbling on Newmont Mining, Freeport, Tesla, if you can believe that. NVIDIA at 108 got interesting. But I think I'm a little different. I think the way that I do this is when assets start to get cheap, you can start to buy into those assets and still run short like S&P futures over the top of your portfolio. So then what happens is you're not really changing your portfolio delta if you want to stay neutral or slightly positive. You're not changing the portfolio risk theoretically, but you are starting to accumulate stuff that's getting cheaper without sort of being, terrified that, am I picking the bottom or am I concerned about my portfolio risk? So that's kind of like what I tend to do when this stuff starts getting ugly. I probably agree with you. I don't know that we're at the bottom. But I think when vol, like when the VIX is 28, nearly 30, when front month futures, like we were in pretty decent backwardation. And the world's scared of everything right now. So like what additional fear can we hit? It was an interesting pocket, but I do agree with you. A 1% rally, all of that, you get a vol crush of like 10%, and that's good for 1% in the S&P. Not exactly a shining signal of strength today, for sure. I would agree with that.
No, and it feels like we're still waiting for the next shoe to drop. Tomorrow,
which is what?
Who knows?
I thought you meant like PPI or Canada retaliation or a Trump tweet.
Well, no, it is a Trump tweet that we're waiting for, a Trump truth, whatever we call it these days. It's the fact of the matter is this is a market that's hanging on his words, hook, line, and sinker. And I think tomorrow is actually a pretty important day. So we have a shoe to drop. That would be when the Ontario Prime Minister, comes down to D.C. to meet with Howard Lutnick, the U.S. Commerce Secretary, because we just heard this week there was, for the first time ever, you could track tariff rates globally on an intraday basis when we temporarily had a planned 50% tariff rate on Canadian steel and aluminum yesterday for a few hours to then it ultimately being lifted. And in response, my electricity prices won't be going up as a result of the trade war. So that's good. I think it's only about $12 a month it would work out to. But still, Victor, I could do lots of things with $12. I could buy some really deep out of the money calls in the S&P for $12. Maybe. So with that, that actually becomes something where, Premier Ford has a great deal of power and sway within the Canadian political ecosystem. If there is some sort of understanding or memorandum of understanding that's reached, that helps lift the veil of uncertainty. That more or less becomes a green light for equity traders. And, Ilya and I have both been, I think, beating from the same drum, which has been this all feels like big picture posturing for the USMCA. It's ham-fisted. It's not the way that I would be going about it, but you can kind of look through all the noise and see that Doug Ford himself talked about the USMCA as why he was coming down to discuss things with Howard Lutnick this Thursday. So if you find that there's a reason, like let's say we just get an announcement that there's a preliminary agreement for some sort of freeze, right? We've agreed to begin the negotiations for a revitalized, renewed, a renegotiated USMCA. And during the renegotiation period, the threat of tariffs will be lifted. No one's going to levy them. No one's going to threaten to levy them. We're just going to let the negotiations play out. Like if a memorandum of understanding came out between the U.S. and Canada, or at least something that points to that occurring in the next few weeks as a result of tomorrow's meeting, you can start to do some planning, right? Businesses all of a sudden say, okay, there is a light at the end of this tunnel. There is a grand strategy here. I'm trying to make sense of it all. Is there a grand strategy? Part of my brain says absolutely not. It's just chaos, but hoping to find some signal through this noise. If that's where we end up in pointing in that direction, then okay, this has just been a negotiating tool. Vol's really high. Let's get a turn from the bottom here, and maybe we get a snapback.
I thought about this today. I want to ask you this question because I keep hearing from really, really smart people, not on this network, but I hear from like this presentation that this is complete chaos. People are shooting from the hip and there is no strategy. And I had this thought, like if you mess with people's money, if you mess with, there's no worse crime in America than messing with rich people's money. And if you're messing with rich people's money, you're going to hear about it. And I wonder, Chris, like, why don't, if we are just being, there's no strategy behind this, there's no deeper potential for upside gain, why aren't the most powerful rich people or wealthy people in America speaking up or saying anything about what's happening right now? Do you think it's because that there's sort of an acknowledgement that there is a strategy? You might not like it, you might not like the way we're going about it, and I think that's total fair criticism. But this idea that we're just playing bumper cars, to me, it's like it's not like intellectually honest, No,
but I feel like it is honest to suggest we're playing bumper cars here because we had a day last week where you had Kevin Hassett come out in the morning, right, and say that the tariffs weren't happening, and then you have Donald Trump come out literally 8 minutes later. But that's the bumper.
He always undercuts those people.
What's the point though, right? Like the only thing that you're doing is undercutting confidence in your administration because you send out these surrogates to speak on your behalf, and it's like, well, what they say doesn't matter. And so, yeah, maybe everyone only then pays attention to Trump, and that's great for him personally. But then all these other vectors of information that we as market participants are supposed to take seriously, we just downgrade and like, oh, yeah, Kevin Hassett said that. Well, we know that Trump's going to pull the rug on his point of view in a few minutes, so who cares what he has to say? And you look at the market today, Kevin Hassett saying we're going to have 2 to 2.5% growth in the first quarter. That should be big news. But that should be big news.
He's always done that. But he's always done that.
Not necessarily.
I'm just saying that.
Has he done it with Elon yet? Has he done it with Elon yet?
I'm saying that's not evidence that there isn't a strategy. What you're presenting isn't evidence that there isn't a strategy.
Sure, then let's go to the reporting that's come out from various outlets in recent days where senior White House aides have gone on record saying, we don't know what the deal with the tariffs are. He seems really committed to them, even though we think the markets are reacting to them.
White House aides? No. I've seen Bessent communicate very clearly about the strategy. I've seen Lutnick communicate very clearly about what the strategy is around tariffs.
Yeah. Bessent's been very clear about it. Lutnick's been... I think he's going to be the first administration official to leave.
I think he's a goofball. I think he shouldn't be there.
He's a little out there.
But in a way, I feel you're arguing both sides because you started out the program and you're saying that this is sort of step one. And what I've said is this is step one of renegotiating the North America economic bloc in order then to go renegotiate with China. And I think you're saying that on one side, but then you're also advocating that this is pure sort of non-strategic chaos. So it's either one of the two. It's either I understand the strategy and I don't agree with the tactics, nor do you agree with the strategy, or there is no strategy. We're just doing random shit on a day-to-day basis and hoping for the best.
I think there is a fine line between the two, and I think yesterday's White House press conference with the press secretary explains it perfectly. She was questioned as to why the tariffs were increasing on Canada and Canada only, and the response was that Donald Trump didn't like the way that the Ontario premier was speaking about him. But conducting policy based on the arbitrary and capricious nature of what offends the president
don't do it how you feel. Don't judge. But here's the point.
We levy tariffs against Canada for what are completely arbitrary and capricious reasons already.
Wrong.
42 pounds of fentanyl, have 13,000 come from Canada. Fentanyl is not a Canadian problem. This is a Mexican border problem, right? If we really want to get
you and I already agree that's a false premise.
So it's a false premise.
It's not the reason for the negotiation.
But in the world of
no serious person believes that.
In the world of real politics, every country is going to stick up for their national interest. All those people don't believe that. But every country is going to stick up for their national interest. And when this guy's saying, I'm going to make you the 51st state, right? Like, I'm going to take over your national interest. Your national interest no longer exists because it's subordinate to mine. It changes the outcome. We may think it's negotiating posture here in America, but in the world of real politics,
I agree with that.
Every country looks out for their own interest.
I do think what you're saying is true. It changes the outcome. I think you've seen a national rallying cry. I think it's inspired this sense of sort of nationalism within Canada itself. I do think it's having adverse effects to whatever the U.S. administration's goals are. I think it's working against them. So I would agree with that. My only point, Chris, is either for instance, to your point on the 50% tariff. The 50% tariff to me was if somebody, if you're in a negotiation, right, and somebody on the other side says, okay, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to be the tough guy. I'm going to slap these tariffs on electricity, and I'm just going to stop sending electricity down to New York, this state, and that state. And I'm going to leave 1.5 million homes without electricity. You can do one of two things. You can either back up and now you appease this other person in the negotiation, or you go scorched earth and let's see if this guy has the cards. And I think what Trump did is he goes, F this guy, I'm going to go all in. And then you got to see the other guy play his hand. And what we found out, the dude had a 7-deuce offsuit, and he talked tough, and he was not willing to go through with. He didn't have the fucking cards, man. And that's what it wasn't capricious or arbitrary. We saw somebody go, okay, I see your raise. Call and then some. What do you got?
Victor, this wasn't Mark Carney. This wasn't Mark Carney, right? This is like if the governor of Wyoming said something about the Canadian prime minister and was like, "Oh, you know what? I don't like what that Wyoming governor said about me."
That's not what it was. He had to.
It's an Ontario premier.
He had to play cards. You either back down. And then this guy would have done the same thing, but you've given this guy the upper hand. That's not the way Trump plays. And I'm not saying this is right, dude. I'm not saying this is the right way to go about this. Okay? So if I'm going to give you that olive branch and say, I'm not saying it's right. I'm just saying
I think this is the right way to go about this. Oh, we're so going past each other.
Yeah, I know. I'm just saying we're playing cards. And that, if you want to see that action as just arbitrary and capricious and whatever, we're playing cards, man. And the dude pressed. And we can either lay our hand down or you bet over the top. And we bet over the top, and he worked. He laid his hand down. So what if you argue with the results? The results were electricity's flowing from Canada, and this dude's coming in to have a conversation with the president. That's the result. If you don't like the tactic, just admit that the tactic worked.
I don't think they needed to do that for the president of the United States to hold court with the premier of some Canadian province.
I agree with that.
You're the president of the United States. You call people into the Oval.
I agree with that. I'm not saying they're the best tactics, and I think you catch more flies with catch more flies with honey or whatever.
Catch more bees with honey than vinegar, but yeah.
Is that it? I always mess that one up.
Yeah.
Anyways, I think there's room in between for us to meet. This is wild, and if you want to form a strong North American economic bloc, there's probably a much more There's probably a better way to go about it, because even if we renegotiate the USMCA, right, and we become this strong North American economic bloc, how pissed off are the Canadians right now? You know what I mean? What does it take to repair this relationship? Because they're pissed, bro, and they probably have every right to be.
Piss off Canada. Come on. The nicest people.
That's very true. So what do you do with, you don't believe in the rally, but you do have pretty high vol, man. We went from nearly 30 vol yesterday down to 24. You already have a crush, but you're still at historically elevated levels. You're still in backwardation in the VIX term structure. So it's not like that vol crush took everything out and there's no fear left in the market. So what do you do with that?
No, nothing. I mean, a week ago.
You like selling vol here, selling neutral vol, or you're sitting on your hands? Like, what do you do?
I'm just completely, for equities, I'm completely hand sitting right now.
Oh,
yeah. I know. I am the worst in many regards.
I hate you.
Like a week ago, like part of the reason you taught me, like the banana zone, the gray zone, whatever you want to call it, for VIX is like 18. If you're at 18, you're just as likely to go to 20 as you are to go to 16. So kind of just chill, right? Yeah, S&P may be near support, but momentum's negative and we're in that gray area. That was enough for me to say, I'll just be patient. And that was 600 points ago. So I'm just being patient right now. And I think that suits, just given my trading style, I know I'm never going to catch the top or the bottom. That's not who I am. That's not momentum. I will always miss the turn. The last trade in the chain will be a mess, guaranteed. Right?
I don't see you as I would give yourself more credit. You're not a pure momentum guy. Momentum guys are idiots. Momentum guys are idiots. You're not a momentum guy.
You see how smooth this brain is, Victor?
I would give yourself way more credit than that. Momos are like my worst enemy. You're not in that camp.
No, but like if the momentum turn won't happen on like a daily time frame. But if the way that I'm looking at this, ideally 53.75 washout, that'd be great. And then I could go in there and say I have a reason to be down there, regardless of the vol environment. But right now here, I'd like to see a little bit of a turn first, and then it's still more of a sell the rip than buy the dip environment. And I think what one of the big tells today, and what has been one of the tells for the past few weeks, has been XRT, the retail ETF. That was the first
ETF ever invented, by the way.
One of the worst. And yet, when you look back at the data, historically, it's the one that's most sensitive to recession fears in markets. Mm-hmm. So what happens today? New yearly lows. There are green shoots, XLK, SMH, they all look really good right now. But you have XRT, the one that topped in early December, the one that fell after the Fed and couldn't rebound like everything else after the Fed, the one that's was closely tied to U.S. consumers, finding new lows today. And so this was the canary in the coal mine, right? You think about sector rotation. XLY had a nice bounce, SMH had a bounce, KRE had a bounce, but not retail. Consumers still look in trouble. Yeah, there are construction problems. You say it's the worst ETF ever created. Fine, that's fair. But, I'd like to see some of these warning signs stop flashing red. Give me a rally here first to show me that there's better breadth. And moreover, coming into today and even at today's lows, like close to the average S&P and median return of the S&P 500 stock was close to negative 23% in 2025, or at least from their 52-week highs. There are flavors of a bear market floating around in the air right now. And I just don't like how it smells. So patience is a virtue more than ever.
Don't like how that smells. I agree. XRT isn't as bad as it once was, I guess. I'm looking at the holdings right now. But I've also been watching. XRT is something it seems you like to watch. We've been watching the home builders, which are equally on their ass, which I find even more telling, quite honestly, Chris, because mortgages were at their peak, were like 7% or something like this, and they've backed off their highs. I don't know exactly where they're at right now. I'm not in the market, but I think we're at like 6.6% or something like that. Mortgages have dropped by like 40 basis points, which makes sense. I think we're off 40 basis points in the 10 and 30, something in that ballpark. And it doesn't matter. Like, And in 2022, if you go back to the previous point where we had pretty decent volatility, housing stocks led. They were on their ass first, and everything else started to come with it. So I'm with you. We're probably not out of the woods, and the way I think about things is a really funny, probably a bad way to think about it. But we're 6,000 plus or minus 200, and I think we've broken into what looks like new market structure below our previous range. So I just go, okay, if we were plus minus 200 before, what's a wider volatility range? If you use something 50% greater, so 300 points, then we are 5,800 is your upside, 5,500 is your fair value, and then 5,200 becomes your low. So your 5,300 washout makes a lot of sense to me but it also means that where we are currently, it's probably close to fair value once you go and you scare the shit out, you scare the shit out of the children and everyone pukes. We're probably close to something like a fair value. I could be totally wrong. I'm just guessing, finger in the wind, and this is not a scientific approach, but that's why I'm okay maybe taking some stabs at long deltas on decent collateral here, because that's my view of the world.
Listen, now you look at where we are in the charts, at least in the S&P ESH5 contract, you could make a case that from the lows we are in this contract's life to where the highs are, you're just a bit below the midpoint. If you want to play the high-low range there isn't short iron condor position that you could put on. I don't like playing stocks, sideways chop. I'll play other assets directionally neutral, but for stocks, I like to be I'm a bull's bull. I'm either buying or I'm doing nothing. And maybe that's a bias that I shouldn't hold, but we're learning here still. In any event, I'd rather wait for a washout because then riding the wall of worry is, particularly when it comes to my relationship with Ilya, will be that much sweeter.
I don't know what that means.
He's the bear on the ball. It's like,
are you having knockout, drag out fights on your show or something like that?
Totally respectful. It's like a Hannity and Combs situation. And like when the market goes down, people tweet at me like, you owe Ilya an apology. And then when the market goes up, people will comment on his YouTube videos like, you better talk to your boy Chris. He knows what's up. And it's so funny. It's like, what are you guys doing? Him and I've known Ilya for half my life. I've worked with him since I was 18, right? Like him and I are boys.
That's unfair for him a little bit because you get to ride positive drift.
No, hey, that was his choice. I did it. He worked there first. I just filled the gap. So
wild. All right. So what do you think about bonds here? I want to talk about some of the juicy headlines that have come out in the last couple of days. But for now, We'll stick with price action. Awesome. Bonds 116.5. It's to me, this has been a bit of a dead trade. People keep asking me, you long bonds? I'm like, no. Once we started sniffing 120, I'm flat. It also seems like everyone that I talk to wants to be long bonds, which is always sort of the first yellow flag. What is your thought about bonds? And then the setup that going into next week's meeting, that if the market is right, and that's a big if the market is right, we're about to continue or start a new cutting cycle with at least 3 cuts. The last time we saw something like this, the long end lifted. Why shouldn't I think that we're going to get the same thing again?
I don't know if the cuts are really all what that matters here for the long end of the curve right now. I mean, and they should, but there are clearly greater forces at play. Fiscal dominance is a theme that's dominated macro conversation in recent years. How if the government refuses to do austerity, if it's spending too much money, it forces the central bank into taking a position that it would otherwise not want to take. And I think that's kind of the story here right now. The Trump administration has been very clear that they want lower yields. I tend to think that it's not the end destination that matters. I think the journey is pretty important too. I'm not a full Machiavellian, as it were, Victor. So if we get to a 2% 10-year yield, but like the economy contracts by 10%, I'm not going to consider that a win. But nevertheless, you have to just take some of the comments that we've heard from these administration officials at face value, where they say things like, we're not looking at the stock market, or we're ready for a detox, or, we're ready for a transition period. That's all fancy talk for recession. And what serves you best during recession? Long bonds and gold. So where am I playing right now? I've been playing in the long end of the curve, and I've been playing in the metals. And for the past 2 weeks, one of the reasons why I haven't taken a bath here and I've been so patient is because I don't feel like I need to revenge trade. And I don't feel like I need a revenge trade because whatever equity losses I've had have been offset by the rally in gold in 2025 and this lift in bonds. So I have short put spreads on in ZB. I have long call spreads on in ZN. And I am totally comfortable holding on to them until we get at least something pointing in the direction of negotiations for a new USMCA. And that really could be as soon as tomorrow. So that's why I think tomorrow is an important day. But bonds here, again, since 1980, top 2 performing asset classes during recession periods. And you can only know you're in a recession in hindsight, right? So it's bonds and gold. And if we think that is coming, then that would be the place to hide out. So that's kind of where I'm hiding out right now.
Interesting. A little 60-40 portfolio action from Chris Vecchio. An oldie, but a goodie.
Yeah, precious metals and treasuries. Zero equity right now.
Oh, how can you be a bull if you have zero equity exposure?
In my trading account?
Why are you at zero?
In my trading account?
Zero.
Well, I mean, I guess like I have some EXC and EPD calls, but like much smaller positions compared. I would say probably like 5-10% equity exposure compared to everything else I'm holding right now in my trading account.
And you're a long-term investor.
In my trading
what are you doing
account.
Over there?
Trading versus investing. Trading account.
I thought you didn't trade. I thought you were like.
You have to have like 5 different accounts. You need like your BS. This is a crazy lotto ticket idea. And if the money gets lost out of this, it's not going to interrupt any long-term plans, any short-term plans. Then you need your short-term trading account where you like try some things out and try to catch moves early and do some things experimental, but not too experimental because this is capital you want to hold on to. And then you have your long-term investing where you just accumulate and buy and hold and like keep stuff in cold storage and don't look at it because you're not retiring tomorrow or in the next 10 years. So why even worry about those assets?
This is how I know you have a much more organized home than I do, or at least a home office, the areas that your domain. Because
don't make me turn off the background.
I do all my strategies in one account. You have multiple accounts for each strategy, which keeps it nice and clean. I'm doing them all in one and just got it all up here. Okay, then damn, now you made me. I was going to go somewhere with this.
So my short-term experimental stuff, like let's just throw some darts. No, but it's important. I think people should actually. This is a good mindset for traders to have. You don't put all of your capital all in on one strategy, right? And this is how you diversify and bring down the correlation of your portfolio. You're operating on different time horizons with different instruments, different directional assumptions, and that way, if something doesn't work out, it's not like, okay, I just blew a hole in the bow of my ship. We're going under. So you can afford to be wrong. And I think actually that psychologically has been the most important thing I've learned as a trader. Just be okay with losing money. You don't like it. You're never going to like it. But just understand it's part of the job. You're going to have good trades. You're going to have bad ones. And if you can just get comfortable with losses, I ultimately think psychologically that's a really important developing skill set for newer traders.
What would it mean if the long end stays subdued? So assuming maybe May we don't get the cut, even though it's like it's like a 55% probability we get something in May. But let's just assume we go in June, which I don't think they can wait that long. But let's see. And the long end stays subdued. Do you think that says something about the market giving both the Fed and or Trump and his administration, like the fiscal authority, giving them a little bit of credit? Do you get what I'm saying? Like if the market doesn't believe that we're going to have adults in the room that are going to mitigate the longer term inflation risks or a fiscal situation, then we are going to see it as soon as we start the cutting cycle. The market's going to answer that question. They're going to tell us what type of credibility the Fed has and what type of credibility the Trump administration, Doge, and all this shit has. If the long end lifts again, all that shit is masquerade, and the market's saying you're doing the wrong thing here, or we don't trust you. They're saying one of those two things. And if it doesn't lift, then they're giving the Fed credit that they're a little bit behind the curve, or perhaps the right timing, depending on how you're thinking about this. And they're going to give the administration credit. Do you see it as sort of that through that binary lens? We're going to find out how the market thinks about these two institutions as soon as we start this cutting cycle again?
Yes. Right now, it feels like the market is of the mindset that the Fed is in, recession cut mode. And I think the market wants the Fed to be in maintenance cut mode, because it means it's cutting for reasons of superlative economic performance. We've hit all three marks. We've got the full employment. We've got the right inflation. We have a growing GDP, right? It's a broad growing economy. This is the Goldilocks interest rate. And you know what? We could afford to juice the economy, because a better economy with a lower unemployment rate is a good thing to have. More people have jobs, broadening out of the economic base, sustainability over the long term. But you have to consider the fiscal outcome here. And the fiscal outcome here, we have no idea where that's going right now. So will the Fed be cutting for right reasons or wrong reasons, Victor Jones? I can't answer that question here. If this all works out the way that I see that Trump surrogates are trying to tell us worked out, is there a plan here? I don't know. I thought there was a plan called Project 2025. I was told that was fake. They happen to be doing a lot of the same things from it. And even some of the documents that are being posted on the White House's website in the metafile data have some of the authors from Project 2025 in them. So I think there might be a plan that's playing out, maybe, just maybe. But if it's not, then what's the hodgepodge of puzzle pieces we're putting together here? And I don't think the Fed knows that either. They're not a proactive institution. They are a reactive institution. They will never skate to where they think the puck is going to be. They will only do so once they see the material damage develop. And the case in point of that is what happened with the regional bank failures with Silicon Valley Bank and Signature Bank in 2023. The Fed didn't act because the credit markets never cracked. They don't need to add liquidity to the system if the plumbing isn't breaking down. And so the Fed is never going to be the person to say, you know what, we think the federal government's going to do this, so we can start cutting now in anticipation of how tariffs may lower real GDP output, right? How tariffs may reduce overall employment in the economy. So we want to provide some support now before that happens. The Federal Reserve will never do that, because that means they're not independent of the fiscal authorities. And that's just not the game they play. So when the Fed starts cutting, I fear the market's initial reaction will be the Fed is cutting for the wrong reasons. They're being forced to do so on a timeline with which they don't want. And that's where I stand today on March 12th. March 19th, Victor Jones, I may have a very different opinion, but we need to hear what the Fed says next Wednesday and where they see rates going and what their new summary of economic projections hold in store, because that will tell us whether or not the Fed feels like it has the ability to operate independently or it is tethered to what the administration does moving forward.
Well said, my friend. I can't argue with any of that. I don't even think I'm smart enough to attempt it. So I will move on. The S&P 500, Chris, the top 5 movers today, I want to point this out, that the NASDAQ was the outperformer of the Russell. To me, I think that's actually a bad signal. It means this is little more than sort of like the Pavlovian response of a marketplace that's trained to buy the dip, and you start to see, is the VIX coming down, the VIX coming down, the VIX coming down, buy Tesla calls. So you get sort of this gamma squeeze in Tesla, up 7.5%. We said that, I think it was yesterday or Monday, I can't remember. But I basically said, when you get your dead cat bounce, I asked everybody, do you get the Russell outperformance or do you think the NASDAQ outperforms? And it was interesting responses. I think we were 50-50, and I said that I thought the NASDAQ would outperform for the simple reason that as soon as people see that maybe some fears lifting, they go buy Tesla calls, they go buy Palantir calls, and they go buy Tesla, Palantir, and NVIDIA. And of the top 5 movers of the day, and the S&P 500, Tesla's number 1, Micron's number 2, Palantir's number 3, Vistra number 4, and NVIDIA number 5. To me, again, I see this as actually a negative sign. I think wider breadth would have been more interesting. Russell over the NASDAQ would have been more interesting, more sustainable sign of strength of people putting capital into more distress areas in the marketplace. To me, again, this isn't a great sign. Do you see it the same way, or am I splitting?
Yeah, it all looks like crap, Victor Jones. I mean, yeah, you're not like today. I feel like there are green shoots there.
Yeah.
But like the sector performance, it's still mega cap over small cap. If this really was the turn that we'd wanted to see, remember in December, was it December 23? The Russell had some days where it was like 5% to the upside. It's like, oh, that's the big catch-up trade, right? And then, but that was this like, okay, if people are willing to jump in with that kind of 2 feet attitude, then you feel pretty confident because these are the Russell 2000 stocks, like arguably 2,000 of the worst stocks in the country.
Can't say that.
We can't? Oh, sorry. No, we can. We're not getting canceled anymore, right? You guys just won the election, so.
Guys. Oh, you were down with cancel culture. You're down with that?
I think people need to. I think one of the big problems in American society today is that no one has any more shame, and there needs to be some sort of mechanism for accountability that I don't think that we're afforded. And you can see it play out. I think one side does it more than the other, and I'm sure listeners feel that same way, but maybe about a different side. But like you see people who change political affiliations because they claim like this is a witch hunt by this people, so I'm going to take flock over here, and the other side says, of course, come to us. Yes, those bad people over there on the other side, like you're now one of us. We forgive all your past sins because you're one of us now. That's not a healthy attitude, right? We need to have cohesiveness, and America is all about second chances. So admitting you're wrong isn't a bad thing, right? And as a trader, if you lose money and you close out a position, isn't that you like, oh, I admit it, I'm wrong. This wasn't the right idea. So like we're comfortable with it naturally as traders. So like we need better cohesiveness and we need accountability and we need to look at the P&L or the results being delivered. I'll tell you, last night, you know how I spend my free time outside of work, Victor. And so like I had a confrontation with a Senate aide last night, spending my free time outside of work because I don't like weekend.
Did either of you have a cane? Were either of you shaking a cane?
No. I wasn't gonna, this isn't like Charles Sumner, Massachusetts, 1856. So, but like that, we need people who are, there are standards, right? There are American standards around here, folks. Let's stick to those unifying values.
So the original question was, you're down with the cancel culture stuff, and your response was
kind of,
sort of, yeah. You're basically saying that society has no shame, and we need a mechanism to enforce shame in our society.
Yeah, and that could be something through private industry. Like if I show up to, work drunk and I get
objective truth though?
But if I show up to work drunk and I get, and I say some really lewd, obnoxious things on air that offend customers and again, destabilize the brand. Hold on, again, right? And Tom says to me like, "You're fired." And I go out and say, Tom only fired me because I'm a Democrat, because he's a Democrat and I'm a Republican. Like, and just and I feel like I could easily find a new home somewhere that people would take me in with open arms just because I say something like that. And that, like, it doesn't matter what I did or said I did, because I just made a point that I'm being politically persecuted. Then, whatever he did, it doesn't matter. It's clearly political persecution. So there must be there's another angle there. And that's a get out of jail free card. And you see it everywhere right now. Just if Democrats do something wrong, it's bad. If Republicans do something wrong, it's bad. If independents do something wrong, it's doubly bad because you're not registered in one of the two parties. But like, if it's bad, it's bad. We shouldn't just say it's good because it happened on our side, or it's not so bad because it's on our side of the table.
I don't disagree with you. I do think there's an erosion. I think what you're speaking to is the erosion of sort of a moral fabric.
Yeah.
But I think we probably just disagree on a solution. I don't think we should. I don't think we should be colluding to enforce some sort of like subjective shame on people using this sort of collective power of the internet, half of which these users aren't even real, which creates this problem where you can just create a bunch of bots, create a bunch of fake outrage on somebody that said something that you want to attack politically. And I think that's sort of the problem. I think social shame, if somebody does something that we don't agree with, that's sort of always a function of our society.
Isn't it though?
People back up. But my issue is it's too easy to manufacture digitally. And I think it can be weaponized.
No, I mean, I wouldn't want any laws on the books that say oh, this person did X, Y, Z, they're officially canceled. That's ridiculous. And I think the First Amendment stuff right now, we're seeing it in the news. I think that's actually worth discussing here. Yeah, because what the Trump administration is doing is a blatant violation of the First Amendment. What he did, I don't like a single damn thing that he said, Victor Jones.
Neither do I.
But you know what? There's due process in this country, and you can't just lock someone up with no crimes committed.
So now you're a free speech absolutist?
Victor, you know where I stand on this. You could, if charge him with a crime, lock him up, but don't just throw him into a hole and say his lawyer's I can't get in touch with him. That's not how we do. That's not how we do things here. That is your guest yesterday is better. Or said.
I don't agree with what he did. I don't agree with what he said. I don't agree with what the dude stand for. But I agree with you 100%. You charge somebody for a crime, and I think
charge him with a crime.
We're slipping into this weird ass territory where both political sides think that they can police speech, and I have a big problem with that. And I don't care if the speech aligns with my points of view or my beliefs or not. I have a problem with anybody thinking that they are the authoritarian, that they alone can police what a free-thinking human being is able to express. I have a real problem with that. And I think if we as a country don't understand that is one of our fundamental values, it's one of our fundamental value propositions to the world.
That's why it's number one.
All of a sudden that we ourselves can't even figure out if we believe that is so problematic. Everything else is downstream to this value.
Everything is downstream from that value, right? Freedom of religion is also part of the First Amendment, freedom of association. And I mean, that's part of, one of the things that bothers me a lot, because I do have a, degree in con law, is that people they're infringing upon my free speech. Well, first off, I'm a private citizen. I can't infringe upon your free speech because I'm not the government. If I want to hold you accountable for something, I too have the right in that First Amendment that's called free association. So if you want to pretend like you and I have a free speech dynamic at play, within that free speech umbrella comes free association. And I don't need to associate myself with someone who says or does certain things, right? Now, there's a reason why this is so important, because we've seen this with the Mormons. We've seen this with Catholics in our country after we try to integrate the Louisiana Purchase down in New Orleans, right? The government tries to crack down when it can on religious minorities. So we need a system that protects people. Just because you don't say the same prayers, maybe you worship a different version of the same God, but that doesn't mean that you can't live in this country. It's what the Mormons drove from 6 different states to where they ultimately end up in Utah, because of political persecution, which is, again, an affront to the First Amendment. So foundational to, America being a good country is the fact that while we do a lot of things and our tentacles of foreign policy interference may spread across the globe, we also have those good things that we do, like encourage people to stick up and have a voice and control their own destiny. And if we're not doing that here at home, and we're, again, undermining it because we don't like what someone said for the sake of whatever, the administration admitted themselves. They said they don't have a crime. They just don't like what he's saying. Charge him with the crime. Show that he's providing material support. Argue in court that him standing, on a soapbox with a loudspeaker and distributing flyers from Hamas's propaganda office is providing material support to a terrorist organization. File that claim, but don't just if you're not going to give him due process, then you're violating the First Amendment, and all of us should be offended by it. And again, sticking to true American principles. People should pick up some original, constitutional literature and read some stories about what the founders were thinking and doing, and how Hamilton and Madison and Jefferson all debated this. It's really informative, and I think it would help provide a lot of clarity for what we as people can do in this moment right now to make sure that we stick to our true American values.
The interesting thing, though, of if there is a hypocritical political action, is it draws people on both sides of the aisle it draws them towards each other. Because if let's say in the past, the left side of the aisle was sort of creeping towards this world where they were kind of okay with tinkering around with the First Amendment or silencing people. As soon as you see, you're always okay with that as long as it's in line with your ideals. As soon as you see that gun turned around and pointed at you, your family, your friends, or people who have similar beliefs, and again, we're talking theoretically. Neither Chris nor I advocate whatever this guy was doing and saying. This is more theoretical, the conversation. As soon as you get that free speech gun pointed back at you, you're going to have an issue with it. And if there's one thing that can be a positive on hypocritical political action, it's reminding people on both sides how important these principles are. That's number one. Speaking to people pivoting, can I ask you really quickly, did you get it? I sent it to you. I don't know if you've had the time. Did you get a chance to check out Newsom's podcast? He's had a few episodes that he's dropped already. And I am curious, I don't want to get into the subject matter necessarily, but Gavin Newsom is doing a wild political pivot, and he is swimming his rowboat. He's rowing his rowboat as quickly as he can to the middle, and what is an obvious repositioning to make himself the front runner in 2028. I'm curious if you have any thoughts.
Yeah, Gavin Newsom will not be the next president of the United States. That's my first thought. So we have.
Dear God.
I have a very difficult time thinking that the Democratic Party will reflexively nominate a person from one of the swing states at the top of the ticket, and it's going, that's not Gavin Newsom. So I think the problem that at the top line level that these Democrats are having is that we saw this in the last election, by the way. Most of the ads that the Trump campaign cut against Kamala Harris were things that she said in 2020. They weren't even from this cycle. They weren't even from when she was vice president. And that's what makes that bit of marketing so remarkable, that it goes to show that there's a playbook here. If you know that there are candidates out there that have given a broad range of opinions on topics that may or may not be considered couth at this particular moment in the American zeitgeist, you're just going to be able to run it out there. So someone who probably wasn't that politically active in 2018, 19, 20, 21, 22, that's probably the person who's going to be in the next wave of Democratic leadership that Gavin Newsom is trying to push away. But if you were elected in 2022 or 23 or 24 as a Democrat, you're probably not with that baggage at the national level right now, in fairness. So Newsom just has that going against him. But, I was surprised that his first episode had Charlie Kirk on it. Of all the people that the governor of California would have, maybe that makes the point. Right?
Why,
you want to talk
why
about,
did you think? Why did you think that you were surprised?
Oh, because I think that these people would surround themselves with, as most politicians do on, again, both sides, they surround themselves with people who don't really challenge them, right? They may have a difference here or there, but true. This is a PR event. I'm doing this podcast to make myself look good. But clearly the goal here is to make Gavin Newsom look more moderate, look reasonable. Hey, I can talk to people on the other side. That's the goal. So he's trying to run for president in 2028. He's definitely trying to run for president in 2028, but he will not be president.
I thought, I wasn't surprised, and I'll tell you why. This is exactly how an old person thinks. They go, I'm going to launch a podcast. Who should be my first guest? And by the way, these are all pre-recorded. So
one of those young whippersnappers.
Correct. So he goes, Charlie Kirk has a big internet presence, and I want this to make a splash. Let's go with the YouTuber, and then that way it can get lots of eyeballs on the internet, and then I'll drop. I think Steve Bannon he just did one with Steve Bannon or something like that. That's exactly how an old person would think. They don't go, I'm going to make really good content with somebody, and then that's going to draw an audience. They go, who's the YouTuber? Let's get the YouTuber in here, and that'll bring some eyeballs to my podcast. That's exactly how an old person thinks.
Yeah, I mean, the San Francisco Chronicle ran a pretty funny criticism of him, or critique of his podcast 2 days ago. That was Gavin Newsom starting a podcast. There's one problem. He's not a conservative. And it's Democrats don't consume this kind of media the way that the right-wing audience does. So maybe he's trying to make a breakthrough and get to, conservatives, but also conservatives listen to more radio than anyone else. I mean, if you listen to Sirius XM, there are way more conservative news outlets available within the compendium of the roster they have there than there are for left-leaning ones. And people who are driving cars, like, where are liberal centers? Cities, public transportation, right? Dense housing. Not exactly people who are sitting in the car all day long listening to the radio. So I don't know if Gavin Newsom's strategy will work. It feels like they're all trying to figure this out.
Give me your short list of who you think's at the top of the. I know it'll likely be, who knows what can happen. There's a lot of time. Like, why do I see Fetterman everywhere? Bernie seems to be making a lot of headwind, like on the sort of the grassroots level, doing all these events. But to me, I feel like fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. Fool me 3 times. Like, it's not happening. There's no way there's enough Bernie support. Unless we just get totally roasted, the economy just gets so roasted that everyone's willing to hard pivot left and goes, okay, yeah, I do want healthcare now because I'm unemployed. So I think that's possible, but you've got.
That's what got us Obamacare. The global financial crisis was Obamacare. You do have to have the conditions for Bernie. We were not really there in 2016, but close. Right, and Trump ultimately wins.
The Democratic Party seems afraid of him, but I don't know. He seems a bit more compromised at this point. So maybe he's palatable to the Democratic power structure.
Yeah, I mean, there's not enough time to go into some of the issues there. I think Bernie has some really compelling ideas. He's built an amazing movement, of course, but is he going to be the case? He's going to be the candidate.
He did. They're gone, and I'm gone. Lots of people who were there are gone.
Well, that's kind of the point. Like, this isn't 2016 anymore, and it's nice that he's doing these, barn burning events across the country right now. But, like, is he really going to be the nominee of the party? And I think what's most disappointing for perhaps people like yourself who find themselves having left that particular strain of the movement. Where were the people that were like Bernie acolytes that were younger, a generation younger, to kind of take the baton from him? And the answer is they kind of went Republican.
I know. I think it wasn't AOC kind of the next in line for the Bernie movement, and she went so far with the culture stuff and doesn't do anything with the economic stuff that I think, then those people left. I would agree. I would say those people left. Am I wrong?
I think that's a mischaracterization of what she supports, because I think, again, one of the things I see on Twitter right now, and Twitter, how the population has shifted. It's become much less left-leaning, much more right-leaning, in part because there's been a big exodus from Twitter to Blue Sky, at least among the left-leaning population, the left-leaning political population there. So to that point, right, like, I've seen the few remaining liberals on Twitter and X complain, how come so-and-so is not doing so-and-so? It's like, well, this person actually, like, how come AOC wasn't coming out in a stronger support of the First Amendment? What a joke AOC is. There was like a tweet that had like 26,000 likes. It's like, well, she did. It just wasn't covered in your Twitter algorithm today, right? And so, like, what gets popularized, particularly if you think about how Twitter works right now, like, when it's basically libs of TikTok, right? If Democrats are doing something stupid, that is getting pushed to the top of your feed. And if AOC is making a statement on, supporting workers' rights for XYZ, that's not generating any traction. Now, what she is doing right now, working across the aisle, as I believe Bernie Sanders and Josh Hawley are too in the Senate, is to cap interest rates on credit card at 10%, which I suppose.
What do you think about that policy?
Well, as someone who would still qualify for a credit card, I'm very happy about that. For everyone else who will not have a credit score north of 800, I have really bad news for you. You're no longer going to have any credit. It is a horrible policy, Victor Jones. It's going to hurt the economy in horrible ways. People won't do business with certain individuals. Credit won't be extended. Just think of the myriad of problems, right? You and I, when we were first out of college, would not be able to get credit cards. We would be living paycheck to paycheck guaranteed, right? Even if we knew a bonus was coming down the line, like, oh, we're at the end of the year, it's time for bonus season, we wouldn't be able to afford to buy the presents before the bonuses came in because we'd have to put them on layaway or something, right? We wouldn't have a credit card. So, I mean, that's the kind of thing this will do for lower and middle income consumers. Prevailing credit card rates right now in the country are in the 20% for most people. So if you cap credit card rates at 10%, you are effectively saying, sorry, businesses, you're not going to make any money. There's too much risk for extending credit to certain income individuals. So they won't do it because, after all, they're in the business of making money. And it's just like the insurance companies with the fire, right, in California. If you're forced to insure for fire, guess what you say? I'm just not going to insure here. It's too costly to my bottom line. Can't risk it.
I'm going to say something at risk of sounding sort of like uneducated on a topic perhaps I should be more educated on. I don't know that. I mean, if you've been listening long enough, I don't know that's much of a risk. But I get, so when Kamala was sort of flirting out the policy of price caps, she wasn't explicitly saying that, but I think there was an assumption built in that that's kind of where we were potentially headed. It might have been fear-mongering, but she never really clarified. The point is, when that idea was out there, I totally get how a scarce asset with limited resources like food, I get how if you impose some sort of price cap there, demand increases. You don't have the economic incentive to then increase production if you can't raise price, and then that's how you get the shortage. I get the mechanism. With credit, it's unlimited. There is no limit on the underlying. So credit can be extended freely in an unlimited capacity, theoretically. And limiting the price, or going down from, let's say, 30% down to 10%, it limits the margin. And there are some, like, depending on like the unsecured or the charge-offs, all that, I know that's part of the math. I just have a hard time figuring out. I do know, implement a price cap, create a shortage. You'll get a shortage of credit. But to me, like, the shortage of credit to me is like, how do you get there? Because credit is unlimited, and technically it's a low margin extension. Well, so I know you're right. I just don't get the mechanism.
I see the problem as like the reduced financial flexibility for people, and if you're not extending credit even to first-time borrowers like young college kids, for example, who may be on the path to being one of those high credit profile kind of people, you're going to force them to turn to higher interest personal loans or payday loans to help finance their living, and like that's there's certainly been periods in my life where it's like, oh, geez, like I have this unexpected expense. I need to put it on a credit card, and then I have to pay it off over time, right? And removing that ability means I have to go take out a higher interest personal loan from, some loan shark. There has to be a better way. Listen, we have this problem with the interest rates. When rates go up, credit card companies, they are more than happy to jack them up, right? There's a stickiness there. And when the Fed cuts rates, credit card companies are like, well, hold on a second. Will the Fed keep cutting? We're not going to do anything just yet. And that really grinds my gears.
Yeah. Chris Vecchio, it's always a pleasure, man. I mean, the problem, it's a good problem to have, but the problem is there's so much news flow generated on a daily basis. I talk to you once a week that in the span of that 7 days, there isn't a chance in hell that you and I can cover the entirety of the news flow and all the things that have happened, and especially because I think you tend to have really highly educated and nuanced takes. But it is a pleasure to be able to chop it up with you at least once a week. If the people want more from you so they can keep up with your opinion on the incredible amount of news flow on a day-to-day basis, can you tell them where they can go?
Definitely at CVecUFX on Twitter or X. Here on Tasty Live, Monday through Friday, Futures Power Hour. 1 p.m. Eastern, 12 Central. We have Let Me Explain on Tuesday mornings, 9:40 a.m. Eastern, 8:40 a.m. Central with Tom and Tony. Here with Victor Jones, The Price of Truth, Wednesdays, 6 p.m. Eastern, 5 Central, and of course, Overtime with Radigan and Spivak, 4 Eastern, 3 Central, right after last call.
My friend, it's always an honor and a privilege to get to talk to you, as I said before, and get your point of view on all the craziness that's happening in the world. I wish the best to you, my friend. Thanks for stopping by. For all of you out there, hit the like button on your way out the door. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. Follow Mr. Vecchio on Twitter or Blue Sky or wherever he is now. Follow me on Twitter at Victor Jones. The O in Jones is a 0 because I like to be difficult. Chris, let's say theoretically you are going to get a new car. Would you consider a Tesla? Yes or no?
No. Because I need a car that can get up my driveway. I live on a hill, and I need some real horsepower and a car that can have snow tires on it.
You've never driven a Tesla. All right.
No, I have, and I've had like my wife's uncle has been here with his Tesla when it's icy, and not making it up the driveway with a healthy amount of salt and sand. So,
are you going to get an American-made car?
Yes, Victor, of course. In fact, like I've been going through all of the, as I've been talking to various dealerships, one of the first questions I ask is, where is this car made?
Good man. And I think more people are going to start doing that, and we should. When I was young, that I asked my my mom and my dad, like, what kind of car is this? And they would tell me what kind of car it is. I was like, how come we don't have a blah blah blah? And they would say, because at the time both my parents were blue collar union workers, and they would say, because this car is made in America, and we support people, we support people's jobs. Or we support unions, where they try to explain whatever the hell a union was. How do you explain that to a 7-year-old? And maybe 10 years later, nobody thought like that at all. Nobody cares where their products are made. Nobody supports. You'll support something like, does this person put seed oils? Does this restaurant have seed oils or not? We've got apps to figure out whether the restaurant down the corner puts seed oils in your food. Nobody gives a shit where people make any of these products and whether or not it supports your local community or whether it supports your local citizens. And maybe that should be some part of the purchasing process. Chris Vecchio, I'll see you next week, my friend. Have a good one.
See ya.
All right.